everyone. Welcome to Mom Squad. This is a show for all of you moms, dads, and grandparents. And today we have two very different topics to cover, but one is something 1 out of every 5 women struggles with. The other has the internet set ablaze. A tweet from a Major League Baseball player that has everyone weighing in on the one question: who should clean up after your kid? So let me introduce my co-host today and executive producer, Jenny Jordan, because this is something that we've been talking about in the newsroom. Yes. And during our morning show. The tweet heard around the internet, basically.
I cannot stop talking about it, and I have thoughts. Believe me, I have thoughts. I think we said this tweet was viewed 77 million times. Mm-hmm. There was 47,000 comments on just his tweet.
Yeah.
By this Major League Baseball player. And then it's been tweeted and retweeted with more and more comments. Everyone's been weighing in on our Facebook page. We are going to get into it.
Right. And you know what? We even, during just natural conversation, we started chatting about even the comments.
Yes.
I mean, it's just we had thoughts about the comments that were coming in. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, we do want to get to a very serious topic, because this is National Infertility Week. Infertility is something that affects 1 in 5 women in the U.S. So this means a woman has trouble getting pregnant or carrying a baby to term. Women who struggle with this issue can feel isolated and frustrated. We are going to be talking to Dr. Breanna Guan, a naturopathic physician and mother of 4 based out of Washington, D.C. She focuses on the reasons why some women struggle with infertility and the possible causes from outside toxins. Take a look.
And from what you know of, a lot of people want to know, well, why is this happening to me? Mm-hmm. Are there causes that we can point to?
Yeah, fertility rates have been declining, and we hear about it a lot more. Young couples struggling with fertility. I think a lot of it has to do with the mismatch between our genetics and our environment. Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome is one of the major hormonal causes of fertility issues. And that's simply a mismatch. So a woman with that sort of genetic profile is supported and does well to, be physically active, have a very lean diet. And, our modern world, we're often bombarded with sugar and inactivity, carbohydrates. And so there's also chemical exposures that we're facing that are impacting our fertility as well.
That, I think, as I've had friends who go through it, they always worry about what products are they using that is maybe causing some of that chemical exposure. And is that it? Is that the problem? Is it my shampoo? Is it my lotion? Is it my dishwashing detergent? What do you think when somebody's worried about that? Do we go completely clean with our products, or is a little bit of chemical exposure okay?
Right. I think, it can feel so overwhelming to try to just take on your whole house and everything that you use all at once. It's like you start worrying about every single thing. So, our bodies have detoxification systems. We can handle a little bit of chemical exposure, but we do see reduced fertility rates in women who are consuming, high levels of foods with pesticides. So conventionally raised fruits and vegetables are an easy swap out, like understanding what are the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. That list is put out by the Environmental Working Group. You can go to their website, get their shopping card, bring it with you, and know which foods you need to buy organic, which ones you can, get conventionally. So food, because you're putting it into your system, right? So that's a really close exposure. A few other things are things that you're putting on your skin, and then keeping your shoes out of the house. We track so many pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals into our home, and we spend 90% of our time indoors. And so vacuuming, wet mopping, getting rid of that dust, and keeping shoes outside are really proactive steps that we don't typically think of, that can have a big difference. Yeah.
And you mentioned PCOS, I will let you say it, but I know what it means. When would a woman realize that she is having symptoms of that syndrome?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome is the most common hormonal imbalance in reproductive age women. So there's a lot of women who are struggling with this, and it can look very different for different women. And it's often not diagnosed well because women can look very different and have the same sort of issues. But women are often identifying my cycle's irregular, I have a lot of acne, I'm having facial hair, I can't predict when my period's going to come, it's not coming. In their teens or 20s, and then, on their 30s. Luckily, that is a pathology that improves with time for most women. So they're not fertile when they're younger, but generally as their hormone levels go down with age, they become more fertile. But yeah, so most women are finding and getting a diagnosis in their 20s.
That's good. When it comes to vitamins, I know that was also a big thing, especially with prenatals, but are there some extra vitamins, supplements, any sort of, I remember looking at teas, those supplements that we can get into our system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Multivitamins are really important for him and her. Often we just focus on the female, but the husband or male is really important too in fertility. So I like to get multivitamins that have active vitamin A, active B vitamins, zinc, selenium, and vitamin D is really important. There are studies showing the development of the uterus is enhanced and improved just with vitamin D supplementation. So we want to make sure those levels are really good. I like omega-3s, your fish oils. Those are anti-inflammatory. And a mom, when she's pregnant, she offloads so much of her essential fatty acids to baby and through breastfeeding. And there's really interesting research that shows that babies who have high levels of those essential fatty acids have higher IQs. So don't we want to provide that, benefit for our children? Inositol is a really great supplement that women can take that supports regular ovulation and egg quality. And that's fairly easy one to add to your regimen.
Dr. Guan encourages women to reach out to their physician if they think they're suffering from any of these symptoms or having trouble getting pregnant. And if you know someone who suffers from infertility, find ways to support them so they don't feel so isolated. I think that is what's most important. I know I have somebody very close to me who's struggling with infertility. We're on the phone all the time. We're talking about just, whether it's talking about it or just talking about the weather, just being there and supporting one another is so important.
It is. It's so important. I think it's just incredible that we're talking about it so much more. I think even just as early as our parents' generation, they didn't talk about it very much. And that's why they felt so alone. And talking about it gives you a support system, and it also gives you resources to say, hey, I went through that. I did this, or I went to this doctor, or even just knowing somebody who went through it and now they have beautiful children to give you hope.
And that's the thing. And I keep talking to this person saying, I've heard stories like yours. I know what's coming down the line. I know it feels like you don't know what's happening right now, but I've seen this situation before with this friend or that family member. It's going to be okay. And I think sometimes just that listening ear helps. So
having a mom squad.
Having a mom squad always helps. We have a Facebook page, and this is where we can get ideas, we can share ideas, and also talk about some hot gossip.
Oh,
we posted this next one. We want to talk about a tweet that's gotten a lot of people fired up. It's controversy over a tweet from Blue Jays pitcher Anthony Bass. He posted this picture with the caption, "The United flight attendant just made my 22-week pregnant wife traveling with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old get on her hands and knees to pick up the popcorn mess my youngest daughter made. Are you kidding me?" So I don't know how that's hitting you, but it's hitting people a lot of different ways and getting
Are
a
you
lot
kidding
of
me?
different thoughts. Jenny, go ahead.
Are you kidding me? Yes, you do have to clean up after your children. That is a part of life. I'm sorry. Are you kidding me? No.
But that's, you know what? You say that, and my first reaction was like, oh, wow, yeah, the flight attendant made you say that. And I was thinking, I see where his outrage is coming from.
Yes.
But then when I was really thinking about it, I'm thinking, you know what? I have little kids still. I have little ones. And every time they make a popcorn mess, and it just happened outdoors, I was like, no, this is not our house. You get it down, you pick up, make sure you clean up after yourself. Like there's that embarrassment of, oh gosh, my child just made a mess. I don't want somebody else to have to clean this up.
Well, and I do have empathy for his wife in the fact that you're traveling with 2 little kids. That's not easy. And I know people are like, oh, then don't give him popcorn. And he's like, oh, well, they gave him popcorn. It doesn't matter how they got the popcorn. You're going to keep them happy. If popcorn makes the kids happy, you give them popcorn on the plane, right? And so I have empathy that they're traveling with the kids and you're pregnant and I have that empathy with them. It is the entitlement of the player that really struck a nerve with me to feel like you're going to call out somebody who asked you to please clean up the mess that you created. That is where it's the fact that he went to Twitter to act as if everyone was gonna get on his side. And I thought to myself, this guy's been playing baseball a little too long. He's been playing a game and not working. Okay, athletes, you guys work very hard. I'm sorry, I take that back. But I'm just saying, like, I think I wrote on our Facebook page, the Mom Squad Facebook page, I feel everybody should have to work in the service industry at some point. Because if you have worked in the service industry, you're getting down there and you're cleaning up your kids.
I mean, this made me think of all the times that we were at a restaurant and my kids, whatever they were eating, even if, it was usually when they were in that like 1 to 2 year age where they're still in the high chair and food is ending up on the floor or crayons are ending up on the floor. And I've been down on my hands and knees making sure that the waitress doesn't have to take the time out of her day and pick up the mess that my child left. And it's sort of like embarrassing to me. And I think that's what's hitting people the wrong way, is that it's not, of course you're gonna get fired up if somebody's like, your child made a mess. Of course you mama bear it and you go, okay, well, I'm doing the best I can. But to publicly call out United and being like, well, they should clean up my mess, don't you think? Then there was controversy over, he was saying, oh, she's 22 weeks pregnant. And then a lot of moms weighed in like 22 weeks pregnant is not like 9 months pregnant. Then her sister jumped in, who's Jessie James Decker is her sister.
The country singer.
Said, well, she's high risk. So then that caused some controversy too.
And I think I love the comment because I'm here for the comments, everyone. And it's like, I love the comments. Like Breanna did the Super Bowl halftime show. I don't think she was quite 22 weeks pregnant, but she had just had a 9-month-old. I mean, she was just had a baby, was pregnant again, and did quite the good job on the Super Bowl halftime show. So we're all super moms here, right? And I think that, and I think it's like, okay, so now I'm gonna make excuses instead of he did not get the point. He did not understand he started replying right away when people were saying it. In fact, the one person said something like, oh, I think one of the first people who were like, what, you shouldn't clean up after your kids? Like, I would always clean up after my kids. And he wrote like, you are the perfect parent. I wrote it down because I wanted to be right. He had wrote, you are the perfect parent. You could do no wrong. And I thought to myself, wouldn't you want to give that grace to the flight attendant too? And that's the thing. I don't think we know either story, right? We don't know what kind of day that flight attendant was having. We don't know how those children were acting the entire flight. I mean, it's a tough situation, right? And we also don't know what kind of day that mom was having. It may have been a really tough day with your kids and you couldn't get on the floor and pick up the pot. I understand that. I have empathy for that. But the entitlement again.
And if the tweet was coming from her, would we take it differently? Because it's coming from him and it didn't seem like was he on the flight?
And it very much felt like he was out for, first, I think he thought everything was gonna sympathize with him. Or her, his wife, and kind of wanted like this flight attendant, I felt like he was out for blood almost. I don't know.
Yeah, it did seem like he wanted United to publicly apologize, which
Yes.
he said in a later statement, I don't know if it was on Twitter, that he is working with United to privately remedy this situation. Internally remedy.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just, it probably is hitting with a lot of grandparents, if you're watching too, of, you know, like what you see compared to how you raised your kids, and just what we're seeing out in public spaces and how kids are leaving messes compared to maybe how they were raised years and years ago. I don't know. I just think,
yes,
like I know my grandma would never let me like drop a napkin at a restaurant and leave
not pick
it.
Right,
you know?
right. And that's where the headline came out, as like, who's responsible for cleaning up after your kids?
Yeah.
And so NBC talked to, I looked this up too, because I was like, well, whose job is it, the flight? Because somebody asked that, well, whose job is it? And he was like, I think he said the cleaning company they hired to clean the plane after. And I was like, well, does the flight attendants clean? Like, I was sort of, so NBC talked to this etiquette consultant who was also a former flight attendant. And she said that it would be very unprofessional for the in-flight crew to ask a passenger to clean it up.
Oh, that's interesting.
So again, I think even if it was, we don't need to go to Twitter about it.
Yeah.
You could easily have called a phone number, you know,
right.
or a direct message or an email could have been sent if you felt that they were acting unprofessionally or that it made you have a bad experience.
Yeah.
But again, I think it just comes down to, like you said, like, you know, my husband and I were talking about it. He's like, well, what about in the movie theater? You know, I don't always clean up all the kids' popcorn spilled. And I was like, well, if they spilled the whole thing, I would definitely try to clean it up.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a little bit different.
It is.
But you don't, I said, what if they spilled a drink? You wouldn't just leave it there.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, well, no. You know, it's sort of like, now we're getting into all these scenarios and we don't know what happened.
And that's why we have so many comments on this.
Yes.
You know, out there on all forms of social media. That's why, because it's like, well, there's this. But then again, there's, you know, somebody pointed out, well, the airline sells popcorn.
Yes.
And they gave them popcorn. So they have to expect some sort of popcorn mess, because there's no situation where popcorn doesn't get on the floor, no matter how careful you are.
Yes,
there's something about popcorn. It goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then there is, people are just looking at it from so many different perspectives. It's, was his actions appropriate? Who cleans up the mess? You know, what situation do you clean up the mess? Who, you know, how you treat people on both sides.
I think in the end, you nailed it right there. Treat others how you would want to be treated, right? Leave the space how you would want it to be left.
Yes.
If you were working there, right? Like, let's just try to be thoughtful towards each other. And
you can tell us your thoughts.
Yes,
we
please.
have this up on our Mom Squad Facebook page. There's a QR code that we keep up throughout this show. All you have to do is hold your camera to it. It will take you right to our Facebook page where you can join us. We want you to pitch ideas too. Like, if you are struggling with something as a parent and you want us to tackle a topic, we've done it already where somebody has said, hey, I need trouble with teens' attitude. We just had that episode. So keep the conversation going. We want you to use this as a true squad where you can get ideas, advice, you can throw out questions to us, and we want to interact with you. So Jenny, thank you, because it's always fun to hot topic it and vent a little bit about.
Now I'm hungry for some popcorn. Let's go.
Right. You can almost smell it.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for joining us here on Mom Squad. We'll see you right back here next week.